In this super quick tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can interact with external JSON files which operate as native JavaScript objects. So we're going to start really a bit with a basic concept, which is what an array is. So everybody surely knows that an array, which can be defined as such, variable myArray equals a new array, is what we consider an ordered array, meaning that every item in the array is ordered by an index. So the first item in the array, here is my name, would be index 0, and you refer to it as such, myArray index 0, and this is how you write it, and this is also how you read it. So if I go down here and just read it, and then I run this script, you can see here the result is what the result is of this item, right? So that basically gave us what the contents of that array is. Now, an object works very much the same. Instead of calling it an array, we just called it an object. But instead of having it be ordered, it is unordered, meaning like it can be in any order. So this actually can be down here, for example. And then if we want to go ahead and call this back, then at the end here, we just write it and we can go ahead and run it, and you can see we got the same result. So what's cool about objects is that obviously they can have names, which can make organizing your data much, much easier. So when you have a very large program or script, and you have lots of data going back and forth, using an object is a really great way of organizing that data. Now, you can create an object like this, or you can also use what's considered compact notation, which is you define the object and then you use an open curly bracket. And by the way, in JavaScript, you can actually have line returns, so we can organize the data a little bit nicer. So we can do this. And then you define the name of the object. So here we go, like the .name part. You actually just put that without the thing because it's going to automatically connect it to my object here. And then at the end of it, you put a comma instead of a semicolon. And we can just do the same thing here. And when you're finished, you're going to do another curly bracket to close the object. So now we're going to be able to call it in the same way. So now we can say my object dot Twitter, for example. And when we run this, you can see here now, I've now pulled up this item. So this object is the same as this object. It's just written a little bit differently. This is what's considered compact notation. And this is how an external JSON object is written. So how do we create this into an external object? Well, for that, we're going to use a free open source library called, we're going to go here, and it's just called Json2. So you just search for Json2. And you're going to come to this GitHub page by Douglas Crockford. He has been very generous and provided this awesome library called Json2. So if you go here to Json2, you can see here is the entire code. You can just go ahead and grab that entire code. I also went ahead and minimized the code. So I just copied that. I went to JavaScript minimizer, pasted it in, minimized it, and got it all in one little line of code, which is here. So I just put that, you just put that entire minimized code somewhere in the top of your script so that it's processed before you're going to use it. And then I have my object just like I did here in my compact notation. So I can just copy that over. All right. And then to export it to an external JSON file, I just create a normal file object. So here is my file, and I just define where I want it to save. I'm going to basically write the file. You always want to make sure you set your encoding for the file. I recommend you do UTF-8. And then this is the key thing right here, JSON, capital JSON dot stringify. And then you pass the object that you want to stringify in there. And then you close the object, and that's it. So if we go ahead and run this, you can see that the result is true, meaning it was able to save it. And if we go looking here in the file and we open, now you can see here that this JSON file, which is just a text file, has my object stringified, which means it's just one long text, a piece of text. But as you can see, that it uses the compact notation. Now there's some cool little features you can do with stringify, which is here, if you can see. The replacer is an optional parameter, but also is this space parameter that allows you to indent the JSON file. So the same way that I by hand did the returns, you can do that here. So if we go back to our code, and then for the replacer, we're not going to use it. So you just say undefined. So you just say comma undefined. That means that you don't want to define it. And then undefined. And then for the space object, we're going to use a return. So a \r is a new line on Windows, and a \n is a new line on Mac. So this will make it cross-platform. And so that basically prettifies the code. So if we go ahead and export this now again, and we open this up again, now you can see here that it actually inserted both the line return and the carriage return. So it's just easier to read the JSON file, but that's just purely cosmetic. You don't have to do that. Okay, so now that we have this object, this external file, all that's left to do is how to read it back in. And so for that, we use the same library. So again, we have the same JSON2 library, and we just do the same file object stuff, but this time we're going to go ahead and read the file into so this here, my JSON is just one long string. And then we're going to use json.parse, and then you just pass the string in here. And then once you do that, so we'll go ahead and run this. So if we go looking here in the data browser for my object, so you can see my object here. If I open that up, you can just see that this is all pixelated, but hopefully you can see here that there it is. That's the object. You can see that it's just there. So of course, I could then here just do this. I could say my object dot company, and then when we run this, we should get the company name up here in the results, which we do. So that's it. It's really that easy. And because it's just because JSON is just already a native JavaScript object, there really isn't much you need to do. What this open source function does for you is it actually just converts the string into an object. It runs a couple of loops through the string. You could use eval to do it without having to use this, but eval is considered to be dangerous because people could put any kind of nefarious code into the external file, and you would inadvertently run this code. And because in After Effects scripts can have access to the operating system, a lot of damage could be done. So do not use eval. Use this library, Json2. It's free, completely open source, and it's awesome. So that's it. This is how you work with JSON objects, external file, JSON files. Oh, by the way, you can also, of course, use this exact method to interact with a web API. So you can basically, usually web APIs can return their information in a JSON string. Then you just use parse on that string. It doesn't have to be on a file. Once you have that text file, you can just parse it and get your native JSON object.